Tales of the Royales. Disclaimers. Do not interact with the story if you can't handle topics of any kind of abuse, wars, descriptions of death in detail, drug use and their abuse, sexual acts, and cult-like acts. Listener has been warned. Chapter 1. New Encounters. Once upon a time, there was a great king who ruled over a world that was filled with happiness. He was a generous man. He helped the poor, he helped the endangered animals, and he wanted to keep this land safe. So he announced 6 great warriors that would help him bring more happiness to the world and keep everyone safe from the dangerous dark dragons that had started to appear not long after his crowning. The Red King... A long bang was interrupted the boy's writing as the cell door was opened and someone was thrown in. That someone slid to the floor on their side. Their hands and legs were chained up together and their mouth was covered with a metal muzzle. As the guards left, the boy jumped off of his bed and ran to the person who had just been thrown in. As he got closer, he noticed something abnormal about them. They had horns and... was that a tail? As he tried to turn them on their back, the person's eyes opened and they quickly launched themselves to the nearest corner, shaking in fear. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. My name is Ryuji. What's yours?" He sat in front of the person. They looked confused as they twitched their pointy ears. Their eyes were pure black with orange irises, which was abnormal, also that Ryuji had never seen before. Ryuji tried to puzzle why his new inmate wasn't speaking until he noticed the metal muzzle. "Oh, you can speak? Because of the muzzle?" he softly asked and pointed at it. They dodged the question and looked puzzled at Ryuji, pointing at them, as they wrinkled their eyebrows, suddenly showing disgust. Ryuji immediately understood and put his hand down, and they calmed down, resting their shoulders. He suddenly noticed the code imprinted on the muzzle, 70427, although he couldn't read it if it was a code or a name, in the dim light that was shining from the hallway between the bars. 704... Toast? Is that your name? Ryuji tried calmly asking. They did look puzzled, but in an agreeing way. "Do you mind me calling you Toast?" He smiled softly, and Toast nodded slightly. A wide smile came across Ryuji's face. "I'll make you my friend then. I'll teach you everything you need to know." As the next day approached, Ryuji and Toast were woken up by them being dragged somewhere very early in the morning. The sun had barely risen up as they were brought to the field of hundreds, no, thousands of other people. Everyone had the same black jumpsuits on, and everyone were separated into different groups, where one of them, Ryuji and Toast, were brought to. There were some people, roughly the same age as the two. A couple of kids started to rebel, and the guards came to them and brought them in front of everyone, on top of the stage. One of the guards yelled, "This is what you get for not following along." And out of nowhere, one of them stuffed their spears through the kids and pulled their cores out. "Make sure you behave well, or this will be you next," another guard yelled, and threw the lifeless bodies of the kids to the ground in front of the high stage. Ryuji looked at the corpses, shocked, but he didn't pretend like he had never seen a corpse before. He was there for a reason after all. He looked around for Toast, finding him to be standing right behind him. He was a quiet one, very short even, but he was seemingly completely unfazed by the children's death. Ryuji was in shock at what had just happened, but he was more surprised by Toast's non-existent reaction to it. Not long after, they were brought on an obstacle course with spikes and death traps. Ryuji brought to himself that they were just fakes until he saw someone get impaled and fall into the pits of spikes, breaking their course in the process. A couple of hundred people were already dead by the end of the day. When they were served food, Ryuji noticed 2 guards around Toast, holding a chain that was wrapped around his neck. He seemed to be not bothered by it, but Ryuji definitely was. He sat across the table from him, noticing that his muzzle was gone. He still had his non-bothered face on. Ryuji thought to himself that he looked kinda cute, but the moment Toast opened his mouth, he jolted back. Toast had razor-sharp teeth. After he had taken a few bites of the food they had served, Ryuji decided to open a small conversation with him, in case he could finally speak. "So, what did you think of the first day here? I haven't been here much longer than you." He smiled, and Toast lifted his gaze at his inmate who sat in front of him. He opened his mouth with a soft growl, but was pulled back by one of the guards by the chain around his neck to silence him. "You mustn't speak with a monster. He doesn't understand Skyvian." The other guard glanced at Ryuji, who seemed to be upset by the news. "Oh, it's fine. I can learn to speak with him in a way that he understands, if that's fine." Ryuji smiled innocently until a guard put a spear to his throat. "Nobody will speak to the monster," he said. Toast let out a growling noise, and he was pulled back again. But this time, the muzzle was put back on him. 2 more guards came to hold Toast down. He became aggressive after they tried to deny Ryuji's attempt at helping. All 4 guards took him away, as he resisted but to no avail. Later that night, Ryuji was getting ready to go to bed. Toast was thrown into the cell with him, but this time he was thrown to the wall and chained up to it from his neck, wrists, and ankles. After the guards left, Ryuji knelt down in front of Toast, asking if he was okay, but he didn't respond. No growl, no noise apart from the slow, heavy breathing. Ryuji noticed that he was badly bruised and a drip of shining golden blood dripped out of his muzzle. He had just been beaten. Ryuji was worried for his new friend. Despite all the things he had seen and done, why did it hurt him suddenly to see someone getting hurt? A sudden beeping sound came from Toast's muzzle, and Ryuji hopped back in surprise. As the beeping stopped, his friend's muzzle fell off and he hit the floor. Ryuji relaxed and let out a sigh of relief when Toast gasped for air. He was capable of breathing normally without it. "Oh, right! I brought you something from the cafeteria. I managed to sneak something out for you. I saw you didn't get to eat much. And seeing your condition, I bet you're suffering a lot." Ryuji got up and went to his bed. He took a medium-sized wrapping from under his pillow and brought it to Toast on the other side of the cell. He unwrapped it, and the little package covered in orange napkins revealed a medium-sized untouched bread with some toppings on it. Toast's eyes widened as Ryuji placed in his hands. His hands turned into sharp claws that immediately made the bread split into 2 parts. In surprise, Toast dropped his bread on his lap to see his claws. He seemed to be surprised, but then his face told Ryuji that he was gloomy because of them. Blood started again running down his nose, and Ryuji took the napkins he had in his hands left from holding the bread, and tried to clean the blood dripping off of his friend's face. Toast bolted back in surprise. Ryuji immediately understood why. He had just been nearly beaten to death. He put the napkins down, and showed both of his hands to him, and then gave the napkins to Toast to show that they won't cause him any harm. And as he relaxed and leaned in again, Ryuji was capable of cleaning the blood off of his face. He also put his hand on top of Toast's nose to feel any fractures, to find none. "I guess you got lucky for not breaking your nose." Ryuji chuckled and smiled softly. Then he took Toast's hand and placed a napkin on it, and replaced his own hand with Toast so he can hold his own blood for a moment. He didn't seem to understand it at first, and then took his hand off, to quickly put it back when he saw Ryuji panic when getting his first aid supplies from a drawer. After Toast and Ryuji managed to stop his nosebleed again, Toast pointed at the first aid supplies and tilted his head. "Oh, these? The king let me have them, since I've been in here for a few months and I behaved well enough for them to trust me having them. I admire the king. There isn't much I can do about the corruption, though." Ryuji smiled as he put the supplies away. As he came back to his friend, he squatted down. "Hey, Toast, are you and I friends?" He pointed at him and then to himself, and finally thumbs up, tilting his head a little. Toast nodded and handed the other half of the bread he was giving earlier to Ryuji, who looked at it in surprise and declined it with a soft smile. Toast lifted his hand again with the bread on it. With a demanding gaze, Ryuji knew that he wasn't going to take a no as an answer. He took the bread, and noticed Toast himself took the side that had his blood drops on it, but he seemed to enjoy it still. After the boys had enjoyed their little meal, Ryuji went to pick up his journal he was writing in, and some colored pencils for some reason. He was doing something in his journal that Toast didn't understand, but I guessed it was important to his friend somehow. Toast rested his eyes a little, as he lay down on the cold rock floor, waiting for his friend to be done. A while had passed, but Toast wasn't sure how long, but long enough. The hallway lights were out. His eyes got used to the dim room, as the faded light from the moon came through the barred windows. He noticed his friend silently sleeping next to him, with the pen still in hand. He must have been tired after the day. Toast grabbed the journal from under his friend's hand and closed it, but he saw what was written on it. "I tried writing something to cheer me up today. I've been gloomy lately, I suppose. I've been stuck here for 3 months, but something changed today. I have an inmate. He's very quiet though, but I believe I can communicate in a way. I think his name is Toast. He's very nice. I hope he likes me too. I haven't had friends since the last incident." Toast didn't understand anything written on the paper, but he noticed the colored little drawings at the bottom of the corners of the pages. There was a little drawing of him and Ryuji eating bread. Toast let a small smile come across his face. He carefully closed the journal, trying not to damage it with his glass. He put it next to Ryuji, and as he tried to take the pen carefully from his friend, he felt how hard his palms were. Suddenly his claws were gone, and he was capable of checking his friend's palms. They were filled with hard spots, tiny fragments of scars here and there, and his muscles were tense, as if he hadn't had a day during his whole time in being in the dungeon where he could relax his hands at all. Toast got worried for his friend, as he placed his hand down gently again. He put his tail under Ryuji's head, who was laying on the floor on his stomach next to him. He turned his friend to lay on his back, as well as he lay next to him resting his eyes again. Tomorrow was another horrible day, but now there was a little hope that it was gonna be eventually get better. Chapter 2. The Unforgiving Wastelands. It's almost been a year since the training started. There are only a few hundred people left, I believe. I'm not sure though. We've been off the campus for a week. We were brought to the Krill's den and we had to find our way back within a week. We were provided with some food, limited supplies, spears to defend ourselves. It's good during the year we've been here. Toast and I have been taking classes together, since we are both still teens. Toast is 15 now, and I'm soon turning 17. We took classes together because we were still technically kids. Luckily, Toast got language classes and I took signing classes. He can finally understand me and he signs well, what he wants and needs. His speech is still work in progress. He hasn't said a single word right yet, but he'll get it eventually. I'm sure of it. I got badly injured, so I can't sign well right now, but he luckily understands my speech. I fell down from a steep hill and broke my right leg and arm. Luckily, I was taught to write with both hands. We got so busy that for the whole year I forgot about my journal. Well, it's also because I didn't have to sit alone in my thoughts anymore. I finally have someone to talk to, even though it's a little limited. We've been on the wasteland now, with little to no food. While I've been recovering, Toast has been running around to find food and possible supplies that were left from people. I wasn't really fond of the idea of looting corpses, but Toast insisted on at least trying so we can survive. We got only each other here on this wasteland. It's like an apocalypse in a way. People attacking you, trying to get supplies, kids and adults both. Luckily, Toast is fast for being only like 4'11". I have my trust in him. Without him, I wouldn't have time to heal or ease my head a little. Ryuji put his pen down as he heard rustling noises. He turned to the noise and saw Toast climb up a stone pillar with a wrecked-looking bag in his mouth. It was a big bag of something. What did you find? Ryuji smiled and looked at his friend who was putting down the big bag and stretched himself. Unused supplies? Oh, and I found some food for you, he signed with a soft smile. Toast hadn't had his muscle on for months, since he was still learning how to speak Skyvian. What about yourself? Ryuji rested his cheek on his shoulder, as he looked at his friend who started approaching him. I already ate my portion on my way here. I also found a giant open gate being behind the big structures there. It's a few-hour run, but we'll make it before the sunrise if you leave soon. Toast sighed as he sat down at the edge of the big withered pillar structure that they were sitting on top of. A wall was behind them that they had their things leaning against. Oh, right. Isn't it going to be the deadline? Tomorrow is going to be the 8th day. I think the gate is going to be where we need to go. I don't think I'll make it there in time. Ryuji sighed and looked at the horizon as he put away his journal. I'm not leaving you here. Toast sighed. We're brothers, he said finally. I'm not leaving you behind, he said. He tried to continue but failed. But Ryuji understood his signing on the side. He didn't have any words. His stone-cold heart started to melt away. He was proud and touched by Toast's first actual words in their language. Just a year ago, he was growling in response. Now he's getting more and more closer to finally being able to finally speak. As Toast went to dig for the supplies from the bag, Ryuji just sat at the edge in disbelief. The young brothers helped each other to get band-aids on each other. Toast helped Ryuji down the big structure that they were sitting on top of. Ryuji hopped on Toast's back. Are you sure you're going to have enough energy to run all the way there? he asked, resting his chin on Toast's shoulder, which he nodded. Not before long, the both were in motion again, on their way to the giant gate. The 8th sunrise started to rise, and the brothers weren't far away from the gates when they noticed they were about to close. Toast sped off the face, thinking they could make it in time if he just tried speeding up. Time felt like it was slowing the closer and closer they got to the gate. In a nick of time, Toast made it, a final leap towards the gate, throwing himself and Ryuji through. They both hit the ground badly, and Ryuji screamed from agony. He was majorly injured prior, unlike Toast, who was only mildly. A woman ran to the two, asking if they were okay. Toast pointed at his brother right before passed out himself. He finally woke up in a hospital bed. He looked around, confused. He had never seen the place. He took the blanket off that was on top of him, and he saw all his injuries were taken care of. He put his hair back on a big messy ponytail and limped his way out of the room. He saw a long hallway with many doors, but it didn't seem like the hallways he was used to in the castle dungeon. He knew them too well. He took support from the walls as he walked, looking through the nameplates on the walls next to the assigned doors. He stumbled upon one door. It said on its nameplate, 10400. Toast knew it was Ryuji's room, since it was the assigned number he was always called during training. He knocked and opened the door slowly. He noticed Ryuji was sitting on the hospital bed, talking to a woman who had the same white outfits as he and Ryuji now had. She turned around, and Toast was greeted with a soft smile. "Oh, see who we got here," she said, and welcomed him in. "You are quite sleepyhead, aren't you? Knocked out for a few days." Toast inspected the woman. She was the same height as him. She had long hair with cat ears standing straight on her head. A pair of blue horns made her seem a little taller than she was. Her white shirt had a grey numbers on it. 35113. "Toast, this is Star. She's also a survivor just like us." Ryuji smiled. Toast noticed his hair was open for once and resting on his shoulders. Before Toast could get any words out, a voice from the intercom spoke. "Survivors of the wasteland, please gather at the courtyard as soon as you can. The king wants to see us, I see." Star sighed. "I'll send you two outside. Just you follow this hallway and you should find your way out pretty quick," she said and walked out, leaving the two in the room. "Are you doing okay?" Toast sighed, with a concerned look on his face. "Don't worry, I'm doing okay. We should go though. Oh, and we also apparently will get new uniforms later on. We still have some training left to do, but we're so close to graduation." Ryuji smiled and hopped off the bed and took the sticks from next to it. Toast helped his brother out, and in no time they got to the end of the hallway. Toast pushed the door open, and bright sunlight shone to his and his brother's eyes. A bright festival was going on outside, as if people were there to celebrate remaining survivors. "Oh, there's exactly 6 of us left," Ryuji noted as they got to see the others. There stood 4 other people by the stage. A tall man who seemed to look like an owl based on his hair. A little shorter guy stood next to him, leaning against the wall next to the stairs on the stage. And the third guy, neither Toast or Ryuji could tell what gender they were, but next to them was Star. "There they are!" Star smiled and waved at the boys. They waved back and tried to check the 3 new guys that she was with. "Have you met the new kids?" Star turned to the others. "I guess it's not a bad thing to introduce ourselves, since we are the last and only ones to survive from the wasteland," the owl man said. "My name is Elijah. Pleasure to meet you," he continued and bowed down to them. "Royalty becoming royale. That's new." Toast sighed at Ryuji. "What makes you say that?" he whispered back to his friend. Which Toast responded, "Only royals bow down that way." "Your friend doesn't speak?" the shorter guy said, now standing with his arms crossed over his chest. "Oh, he can't speak well yet. He's still learning, so he uses sign language to communicate." Ryuji smiled at him, Toast being his usual silent self. "I suppose you can translate to us then?" "My name's Sunbi." He shrugged his shoulders and looked at the last guy who hadn't introduced themselves yet. "Inka?" Sunbi raised an eyebrow. "Ah, sorry, I zoned out. It's hard to get my mind back on the right track at the moment. My name's Inka." He smiled awkwardly while rubbing his other forearm, seemingly not okay. Sunbi walked up to him and put his hand on Inka's shoulder, pulling him to a side hug. "Everything's going to be okay. We're safe now, and we survived. That's what matters now." Sunbi softly smiled. and got Inka to smile as well. That's the spirit! Sunbeam chuckled and pinched Inka's cheeks, which made his friend let out a chuckle as well, showing Toast and Ryuji that tough-looking people can also have a heart. Inka hasn't been himself ever since a few days ago during the trial. Sunbeam sighed as he looked to the ground, and then up at the boys. We saw one of our friends get impaled by a withering tree after a grill tossed them. I and Inka are the only ones left of our friends who entered the trials, he continued. A worried look on his face as he held his friend in a comforting hug. You two have been close for a long time? Ryuji asked out of curiosity. Meanwhile, Toast had been tilting his head, puzzling why Sunbeam also had pointy ears like him. I grew up without parents pretty much. Inka's family took me in, so we've been brothers most of our lives pretty much. We had a huge friend group. They all got us into the trials. I was promoted to be the new leader of our group since our last leader foolishly got eaten by grills. Some got infected, some were just straight up killed. Sunbeam sat down with Inka, who had already zoned out. Infected? Ryuji sat down as well, but long after others sat on the grass with them. You didn't see the other kids acting like zombies? Sunbeam raised an eyebrow. Ryuji was confused and turned to Toast, who had already been seemingly thinking. It did strike me odd as some of the kids' hair was turning black and they walked weirdly, as if they were like zombies, just like Sunbeam said. Toast sighed. I was out of commission for a couple of days. Something must have happened during it, Ryuji started thinking to himself. When I killed people, they started cracking and new limbs started to grow or wither away. It looked really disturbing as they tried to eat me, Toast sighed. But before he could continue, Sunbeam has let up. Wait! Aren't you the kid who killed those squirrels? At the nest, when the people were escaping on the first day. His eyes were locked on Toast, who tracked his tail on Ryuji's lap. Usually when he did so, it meant if his tail was let go, he was ready to attack someone. He dropped his curious expression to a murderous one. He seemed to be ready to attack Sunbeam at any given moment. Toast, calm. Yes, it was him. What about it? Ryuji held Toast's tail tight and looked at Sunbeam. I heard nasty rumors about him. What kind of nasty? Ryuji dropped his smile as well. Rumors spread fast, but I heard he's also a cruel himself. Am I wrong? Sunbeam dropped his friendly act and glared at the two brothers. Toast was quiet, unusually quiet. Toast? Ryuji hesitantly turned to his brother, who had their razor-sharp teeth exposed. And? Toast said out loud. A little off, but they understood it. Ryuji's heart sank. Had he really made a bond with a krill? Why wasn't he aggressive? Why wasn't he hurting anybody? Why would he take care of him after he got badly injured? The silence was broken once again by Sunbeam. If he isn't, then why does he have a tail and horns, black void eyes and sharp teeth? I bet he has claws too. What does he eat? Sky cats? Until he was stopped by Elijah. That's enough, Sunbeam. I was there when he entered the gates, carrying his friend on his back. He was only mildly injured, but his friend was majorly. A leg and arm bone shattered. It was a miracle they were still intact. He got up and looked down at Sunbeam. Rumors are rumors. They shouldn't be believed. If he's a krill, he surely doesn't act like one. He is, or he isn't. He will open up about it, once he's ready. He's now one of us. Treat him as such. Then why is he here? Sunbeam put his other arm up, facing Toast. Because he didn't have a choice. Star finally spoke up. Toast was captured and brought here. I believe he didn't have much choice than to be brought to the trials. Same with Ryuji. Neither of them joined with free will like we did. I used to be Ryuji's doctor when I was training to be one. He was a quiet kid, but not long after I graduated and got to work in the hospital, I got a report of a missing patient. After a genocide of patients and doctors, he was found from the closed section of the hospital, surrounded by blood and bodies. He was in rehab for a long time and he seemed to get better. But since they couldn't let him go free, they put him in jail, in the dungeon under the castle. He was brought to the hospital because he had killed his own family. He was barely surviving on his own when he was 7. Toast was different, however. He was caught and brought here. He didn't do anything wrong. People just thought he was dangerous because of his looks and the fact that he didn't understand Skyvian language at all. He was brought to the same dungeon as Ryuji was in. Doesn't sound correct? Sarah lifted her gaze from the grass to the brothers, which neither of them responded. Ryuji sighed and finally nodded. Yeah, sounds about right, he said, looking away as he patted Toast's tail to calm him down as well. It doesn't matter who or what you are. What matters is that you're alive and well now, and the courage to keep on going. Are you two with me? Elijah squatted down in front of Ryuji and gave him his hand. You don't want me to let go of his tail. This is his way of showing that if he's allowed to attack someone. Unless if it takes the tail of himself, he's in a triggering mode. Ryuji awkwardly smiled as he patted Toast's tail that was still remained on his lap. Elijah took his hand away and nodded. He put his knees down in front of Toast and gave him his hands to show that he isn't a threat. May I pat your head? He politely asked, with a reassuring smile. Toast seemed hesitant. He tilted his head down a little, and Elijah put his hand above his head, giving Toast an option if he wanted it or not. He started to growl a little, until he heard Ryuji speak. It's okay. He's not going to hurt you. He's on our side. When Toast turned to his brother, Ryuji gave him a reassuring smile. Toast calmed down and hesitantly lifted his head to meet Elijah's hand, who gladly pat the young boy's head. A voice from the stage spoke, calling the survivors on the stage. Sunbei woke Inka up. Star helped Ryuji up and Elijah helped Toast. Everything's going to be fine, trust me. I'll make sure nothing happens to any of you. Elijah smiled and led everyone towards the stage stairs. Maybe life with them wouldn't be so bad after all. Chapter 3. Secrets Among Men. A large parade was going through the sealed city. People were cheering, some people were crying from happiness. The 6 survivors, now known as the Royal Guards, Royales as some called them, walked through the parade. Elijah walked first. He was holding a massive flag with a star on it. All of them had the same star as a pendant around their necks. All of them had a similar kind of grey uniform and different kinds of animal masks that represented their personality. Elijah had an owl mask on, and next to them was Star with a deer mask on. Behind them was Sunbi and Inka, Sunbi having a tiger mask and Inka a bird mask. At last was a Ryuji with a fox mask, and Toast with a dragon mask. Masks kept them anonymous, so they can also enjoy their life outside their work. However, they all knew they'd never get a rest ever again. As some girls were talking about Toast, he turned to them. As he heard them, they passed out as Ryuji grabbed his attention to keep on going with them. It's gonna be done soon. Just hold on to yourself until then, he whispered to him, who sighed, seemingly uneasy about the amount of people watching him. I want to go back, he murmured. I know, I want to go home as well. But it's a big day for not only for us, but the whole kingdom, Ryuji smiled, despite his mouth being the only one out of the masks that didn't show. Not long, boys. We're soon there, Inka whispered to the boys from over his shoulder, and the boys nodded behind him. Day turned to night as the Royales were setting themselves in their new home. Elijah and Star were paired, Sunbi and Inka were paired, and Ryuji and Toast were paired, as they requested. Their rooms were at the castle, and their own lobby was extremely fancy, fancier than normal. It's a big fall from there. I wouldn't recommend jumping. Toast turned around to see Sunbi leaning on the glass door behind him. What do you want? Toast put his feet down on the balcony. Nothing, just warning you. Sunbi rolled his eyes as he walked closer. Just a month ago you were shouting at me. Now you act like you're trying to help. Toast raised his eyebrow when Sunbi leaned on the railing next to him. I know, I was a jerk, but I was only trying to protect Inka. I don't want him to turn out like, well, us. Sunbi looked down at the lit-up city below. What do you mean? Toast's words were a bit slurred. Sunbi sighed. He's not like us, survivors of trauma and escaping reality just to find something to live for. I see you have Ryuji. Seems to be your reason of staying. I have Inka. He's my reason. I know you've been running away for a long time. Running away from your fate of being the Krill Prince. I've known since I first saw you that you're a Krill. I'm not mad at you, though I just happened to put my anger on you. You see, I just lost my family to Krills. He continued. Toast looked in the distance, beyond the horizon line, far beyond the city's borders. Flickering lights of the undead Krills on Skykids shone far, far away beyond them. How did you know I'm the Krill Prince? He finally opened his mouth again, letting the chilly breeze touch his face. Your chest isn't shining like everyone else's. We all have cores, it's like our hearts. You didn't and still don't have one, Not only that, you got horns, a tail, your eyes are black, and you got razor-sharp teeth. Zombie raised his gaze towards Toast. Have you eaten anybody? He continued. Zombie's question made Toast freeze momentarily, until he looked away. I did what I had to do to survive on the unforgiving wastelands. I knew Rich's stomach wouldn't survive my kind of appetite. So I brought him food from the people I ate, so he would have normal food to eat still. Elijah stood behind a curtain on the other side of the wall, so the boys wouldn't see him. He looked down at the floor. The boy's sudden change of tone made him jolt. As if you're gotten better at speaking lately. Zombie decided to change the topic to lighten up the mood. How do you do it? Fuck if I know, man. I've been only listening to you guys talk. Because that's all you guys do. Toast rolled his eyes with a small chuckle. Hey, who taught you that? Zombie playfully punched Toast's forearm. You, obviously. Toast teased him. I don't fucking swear. I don't know what the hell are you talking about, Zombie said in mocking voice. And then both started laughing a bit. Elijah smiled to himself and quietly walked away to not disturb them. The next day was going to be a big one after all. The boys were messing with each other on the balcony until something caught Zombie's eye. A light. But not just any light, a lantern. He squinted his eyes as he was seemingly running away from something straight towards the city gates. What? Toast looked at him, confused, but turned to see himself as well. It surely was a lantern, and someone was carrying it in the dark. Toast took a leap inside immediately, and picked up a spear that all of the royalists had been given. Where are you going? Zombie walked inside. If there's any chance that there's a survivor, we need to let them in. And isn't that our job, to look after the gates? Toast turned to him, as he grabbed his own and Zombie's masks. You're coming with me, he continued, as he threw the mask at Zombie along with the spear. What? We got no armor or anything good to defend ourselves with. How did you plan this going at all? Zombie tried to keep his voice down to not wake up the others. Stop complaining, let's go, Toast said, already in the hallway. Zombie tried to start many sentences but stuttered and couldn't finish a single one of them, before giving up and running after the young dragon. Toast ran ahead, and as Zombie was running after them, only a few things went through his head. Could he really be a survivor from the trials? It's been over a month since it ended. And most of all, how is this kid so fucking fast? He thought, as he looked how far away Toast already was. When the boys reached the city gates, they opened them, and as they did, they saw a cloaked figure next to a lantern. The flickering light of the lantern revealed the body of a dark creature, and the cloaked figure had their cloak covered in blood. They turned around, and Toast smelled something was off about them, pinning them to the ground and putting his spear at their neck. Before he could cut their neck, he yelled, Please wait! You can't speak? Toast raised an eyebrow and pulled back his weapon. I swear, I come in peace, the cloaked figure said, covering their face with their hands as if Toast would have immediately put the weapon at their neck again. What do you want, Krill? You're very far from home, Toast roared. I come to deliver you all a warning notice. My name's Raven. I was assigned as our prince's assistant. Our Dark King wanted us to deliver this to you, he said as he took a shielded katana from under his cloak. It's originally meant for killing skykids. Made out of an ore that hurts them the most, infused with the infected Krill's blood. Raven looked sad as he looked at the weapon in his hand. How do you know so much about that sword? Was it told to you? Zombie made his presence known. Because I made it. He lifted his gaze from his sword in his hands, then at Zombie. Toast finally let the boy get up, and Raven opened the sword from its saya, revealing a pure white and gold katana. Upon opening it, glittering gold turned pure black, with a hint of blue. However, I will not let you have it, because I'm going to reuse it, to make it useful for you all, and not make you want to kill another person without a reason. Raven put a katana back in its saya. So many had been killed just to make this one singular one. I know I can't ever bring those lives back, but while I was on my way here, I learned in exchange that hurts girls the most. I've been helping survivors all around. There are thousands, even millions of sky kids getting hurt by krills daily, all innocent, and never harmed by them before you guys' trials, where you track the krills into the light side of the kingdom. They need our help. Most importantly, your help. I can help you out with my research at this current moment, as I'm not strong mentally to be able to fight, Raven explained with a genuine sorrow in his tone. He took off his hood to reveal his pure black hair and horns. I understand if you don't want me to enter the kingdom, or whatever's left of it, because I'm a krill. You can also kill me off. I would just give you my research papers first, and you can kill me afterwards. Anything is fine to me. Whatever is the best suitable for your opinions, as long as I don't need to get back to the Dark Kingdom. Raven looked at the ground and knelt down. Please, our Dark Prince, please tell me how I shall continue from here. Your word is the last fate of our land. He looked at Toast. Toast looked down at him in disgrace. Some people looked at Toast, confused, but tried to keep a poker face on. Don't call me that, first of all. Second, how do I know you won't betray us and kill us all? Toast eventually sighed. Raven went into his thoughts, as he slowly looked back and forth to the ground. Meanwhile, Toast took a sharp tooth from the Dark Witcher's mouth and slid open his wrist, revealing shining golden blood underneath. He pointed his hand towards Raven, and as he noticed it, he ripped a part of his cloak with his claws and was about to put it around the wound, when Toast pulled back his wounded arm. Please, my Dark Lord, let me heal you. Please don't hurt yourself to prove a point, Raven said, visible panic in his eyes as Toast looked at him. His eyes weren't black and orange like his own, however white and purple. A shining core was visible on his chest that brought Toast to look down at him, and then back up, at the taller dragon in front of him. Raven's black hair was resting on his shoulders, a part of it closed and a small ponytail, revealing its pointy ears. One thing that struck Toast as odd was the fact that part of Raven's horns, possible tail, and black hair and purple eyes he would be easily mistaken as a sky kid. Zombie looked at Toast, waiting for his judgment on the case, and he seemed to be thinking deeply. We'll bring you to our castle. We'll get Elijah's word into consideration too, since he's our leader after all, he finally answered. You're really letting a Krail into a highly isolated city? Really? You're out of your fucking mind, dude? Sunbeam spoke through his teeth. He didn't like where it all was going. I'll take the blame, if anything bad happens. Toast looked over at Sunbeam. I understand if you guys don't want me to be there. It's very understandable, don't worry. I can stay here while waiting for your leader. Raven stood still, while holding his elbows over his stomach. Nah, I wouldn't like a survivor to come all the way here, almost across the kingdom, just to sleep outside. You're coming with us, just cover yourself. Toast glared at him and started heading towards the gates. Take your lantern and let's go. Zombie rolled his eyes and waved his hand in a way that seemed as a sign to follow them. When they got to the castle to their own section, Toast found a room for Raven where he could sleep in, and as he and Zombie were walking back towards their rooms, the hallways were purely silent apart from the empty echoes of their heavy footsteps. So, you're a prince then? Zombie finally broke the silence. Toast looked away. I didn't want people to know. I would have been treated differently, just like in my own kingdom. If the others would know, everyone, including Ryuji, would see me in a different light. I guess you don't want that. Zombie looked at the young dragon walking next to him. I was pleasantly surprised by your reaction skill out there, and I don't say that to many. Zombie rolled his eyes and started yawning. Is it okay if I handle talking tomorrow? I feel like I can explain why we have another krill in the castle without pissing off Elijah. Toast looked at Sunbeam, who just shrugged. Nah, fine by me. He let down his hands and put them behind his head as they walked.